Yeah, just as you have mentioned, I am Kenyan, but currently in the UK for postgraduate studies at the moment. I will be picking on from where Rich has left at to talk about how young people, how the youth in various networks have been involved in revitalizing and transforming the food systems across the globe. I joined VSO in 2016 as a volunteer, and I was placed at some local organization that dealt with biogas as a renewable form of energy, and also solid waste management. And that kicked in pretty much well with what I do now. It has led to me understanding communities, how they work, and the problems that they face. And so that has always been a constant push for me, and built my zeal to continue working together with young people so that they can further empower themselves and even their communities to be able to address various issues across the world, especially now focusing on climate change and how it affects the food systems in their communities. So I will tell you, I will, in the next slide, I'm just going to tell you how food systems is affected by climate change. So the first thing that we think of when we talk about climate change and food is that it threatens our food system. So the youth are also facing limited or even no access to food resources. And this includes safe, affordable, and nutritious foods. During a research that we conducted earlier this year in February, just towards March, towards September, we had people in indigenous communities and in urban informal settlements telling us that they don't have the information on what affordable food is, safe, nutritious food is. They know that they're supposed to eat something during the day. They just don't know which one is nutritious for them, which one is safe for their consumption. So there's the issue of the information, and then there's also the aspect of cost. So people tend to buy food that is much more affordable or is within their line of expenditure. And so that also becomes a problem. We've also seen cases of policies where they're either not implemented or they're just not good enough. For example, in Kenya, we have the Bureau of Standards that regulates and controls, the food quality and quality of various products really in the market. And it's really difficult to regulate street foods. So in Nairobi's informal settlements, for example, there's a lot of food sold by the sides of the road, but that is really difficult to regulate. The other thing is, in as much as youth are supposed to be doing something about food insecurity, they're also affected by that particular phenomena. So there is a lot of disasters that are induced as a result of climate change. We have flooding, drought, armed conflicts where they fight over grazing fields and food fields or farms. There's also diseases that come as a result of climate change. We have the Zika virus, chikungunya virus, which is mostly in the tropical regions because of the increased heat. There is also malnutrition as causing other further diseases. And because of all these things happening, there is increased chances of youth being plunged deeper into poverty. They will lack access to opportunities and services. If you don't have enough income to access health services in your region, then that makes you more vulnerable and susceptible to further impacts of climate change and even food insecurity. So working with young people, we've seen that they now tend to understand the whole science and phenomena around climate change and how it affects food security, and they're now seeing the urgency of dealing with this solution, and they are also seeing their role in it. So what they're supposed to do, and I'm just going to tell you now how we have done a few activities in the past to engage young people in tackling climate change or directly on food systems. So the image you see on the left is during a tree planting event 2 years back on Let's Combat Desertification. So I organized this event personally and put together, I brought together around 150 youths from various organizations, actually 10 to be precise. And it was at the backdrop of forest clearance in Kenya. So various private development companies and even the government was doing a lot of clearing of forested areas for development projects. And the water catchment areas, the main water towers in the countries were at threat. And this, by extension would affect the food systems and food security of the communities. So this activity was to raise awareness on the importance of preserving forested areas, and also they need to plant more trees to, in as much as with fighting climate change, curbing climate change, we're also ensuring that communities will be able to sustain themselves now and in the future. The image you see on the right-hand side is during the food systems research that I mentioned earlier, where we brought together various stakeholders. And in this particular event, we had the youth, both male and female, coming together to discuss how the food systems affect their livelihoods. So that particular presenter you see over there is a student who, in this context, is a consumer of, in the market. They also need food for their day-to-day lives. So they're trying to share how the food insecurity is affecting them on the perspective of a student. So we engage youth in two different ways, broadly. The first one is as change makers, where we know that young people or youth are very critical when it comes to bringing about change that we desire to see for our communities. So in those networks, we lead their actions. We influence them to lead actions so that they can engage effectively in policy processes. They can engage in reviewing of existing policies. They can contribute to food system transformation at different levels. Because we also engage youth in networks, because in networks, they are more organized and it's more sustainable, and we get to reach more people through our initiatives. We have seen the youth networks being very instrumental in carrying on the work that we do with them directly as VSO and the youth network. So they're able to escalate that work further down into the communities and reach even more people. We have the Youth for Sustainable Development Network in Nairobi, which I'm the co-founder and director. We also have other youth chapters, other chapters of the same organization within the country in 13 more counties. In different regions, especially in Asia Pacific, we have the National Youth Engagement Network. And even here in the UK, we have the National Youth Engagement Network that creates that platform for young people to be able to engage themselves in these initiatives. Within these networks, there is good diversity. We have those coming from urban regions, rural regions. We have those coming from, with little to almost now no formal education. We also have persons with disabilities, where even when we organize for our Zoom sessions or physical activities, or such as training, we have sign language interpreters stepping in to make them feel more included, so that we have an inclusive process that meets the needs of different kinds of youth within the community. The other way we engage youth is as primary actors, because we recognize that yes, they can be change makers, and they are doing a lot of tremendous roles, in their communities, but they're also affected by the same phenomena that we're trying to fight. So we have been trying to improve their skills, knowledge on various things, whether it's climate change. They understand the science around climate change. building resilience, understanding vulnerabilities and capacities of various communities to food insecurity and various aspects of changing weather patterns. And then we also give them a mentorship and training on the same so that they're able to be involved in policy processes. So whether it's at national, local, or regional levels. At international levels, we have exposure to opportunities and conferences like COP26, I would say, or Younger, which happened last week and a few months ago, respectively. So we engage youth so that they can improve themselves, to understand what is happening and grow even in their careers. So how do we engage in the food system processes, especially in the research that was carried out by myself and a team of other young people in Kenya? So facilitating food system research dialogues, that has been the youth doing that themselves. So I train them and a few other champions, and then we create more champions, and they're able to facilitate these dialogues in the communities. We're also able to engage various stakeholders at different levels. We have had even religious leaders, private companies being part of these dialogues. We have government, because they have the primary role of taking care of the needs of the communities, so they have to be part of these dialogues. And we also give the youth a platform to voice these concerns. In Kenya, during our research, we had the sub-national dialogues where each regional block, regional economic block in Kenya, was having their own forums to, present the findings and assess the status of the food systems in that regions. And, we're able to have representatives take part in these. Lastly, we also consolidate their voices and use that to come up with whether it's youth requests or papers that can be used to influence policy processes at different levels in their communities. So that is the end of my presentation. I will be happy to answer any questions that come later on. Thank you so much. Back to you, Eric.